everybody, I'm Laura Burstein from Porsche Club of America, and we are here in Monterey Car Week at the RM Sotheby's auction with a very, very special car, and we have a cornucopia of information coming for you.
Be sure to log into your YouTube account, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a video. Best of all, it's free to do so.
We have Boris Apenbrink and Grant Larson from Porsche Exclusive Manufaktur here to tell us everything about it. So we're very excited. This is the Sally Special, a one-of-a-kind car, only one in existence. It's going to be auctioned off tonight, and we're going to hear all of the great details about this car. So Boris, let's start with you. So if you want to explain to us, tell us a little bit about how this all came about. So Sally Carrera, as we remember, was the love interest, shall we say, based on a Porsche 911, and now here she is in real life.
Actually, it was 2002 996 Carrera that Sally was based on, so that is the link to the 20th anniversary thing. We are all about anniversaries, as you know, so there are several ones. The movie, but Sally, and also the 996. But even more important, from the early beginning, Porsche wanted to do something meaningful, something very positive. And so they thought about what could be the right thing to link this meaningful purpose to. And yeah, they came to mind that Sally Carrera would be a good thing to link it to.
When Porsche Exclusive Manufaktur makes a car, normally everything is internal in Porsche. But because of the fact that this was branded with Pixar, you had to bring in help from some special friends that you worked together before. So can you explain a little bit about the process? How did this start? Who did you work with? And how did this all come about?
Yeah, absolutely. With our Sonderwunsch program, we are all about co-creation. So normally we are used to do this together with customers who want to realize their dreams and bring them onto the road, you know. And here, in this case, Porsche Cars North America approached us because they had talked to Pixar and talked about Sally Carrera and the movie Cars. And they said, come on, we have this idea. We want to create a car that is inspired by Sally Carrera. And how can we do it? So normally we are used to do it with customers, but here for the very first time, we did it really with a team of Porsche Cars North America, and even more important, with the Pixar designers. And that was so interesting and such a great experience to go along until we have the finished car here.
So a little bit about the process. Did it start with sketches? What was actually the process from deciding we're going to do it to seeing this car right here?
You know, we brought two worlds together, and this is right and correct to say this up until the finished car. The movie world, where you can change anything until the final cut before you watch the movie in a cinema, and the automotive world, where you have to have a certain time where you say, okay, now that's it. And we felt it from the early beginning that this will be an exciting ride, because of course they started with sketches. We all went back when we heard that we have the task to build a car that is inspired by Sally. We watched the movie again, and we saw how much this movie is about passion for detail. I mean, all the little details in this movie that make a smile on your face, so we knew this will be a challenge, because we normally bring people to smile with our cars, but this attention to detail that the Pixar guys put into their movie, that is phenomenal. And yeah, that's where it started to work with Jay Ward and Bob Pauly from Pixar. I mean, they are both really characters and really experienced with building characters as well. So to sum it up, what made it special is we were not building a car, we were building a character together.
And I know from talking to you, Porsche doesn't take anything lightly. There are usually a lot of emails and a lot of meetings involved. So can you tell us a little bit more about kind of what was the process? I mean, obviously working with Pixar and the emails and the back and forth, what was the time frame and how many emails were there?
I mean, we stopped counting with, I think, 1,500 emails probably. And normally we have a lot of email contact with our customers as well with their bespoke creations. But here, I mean, as I said, it was a new level of attention to detail. Things like the Ka-chow mode that we put, or the Ka-chow logo that we put on the drive mode button. I mean, we really discussed, Can we put the Ka-chow mode button into Sally because this was more linked to Lightning McQueen? Would it be a nice anecdote or is it wrong? And we had so many discussions about having eyes, don't have eyes, because it's not a character, it's a car that is inspired by a character.
So this is a street legal car,
This
too,
is a street
just
legal
to
car.
be clear. I mean, this isn't
Absolutely.
for show. This is meant to be driven.
Exactly, and that's very important. This is not a new Sally. This is how a Sally special car inspired by the original character of Sally Carrera would look like in 2022. So it's drivable, you can use it on the road, but you feel the character anywhere, outside and inside of the car.
And how long did it take from the time you guys decided that you wanted to do this until the car was sitting here finished?
I would say it was a time of around 6 to 8 months, so it's very short time, especially if we take into consideration that we developed so many things specifically for this car, starting with the color, but the wheels and all these little details that Grant and you will talk about later.
And this is, just to clarify too, this is a 992 GTS. Now, why
Absolutely.
specifically did you guys choose the GTS to represent Sally?
I think that was maybe 50 of those emails probably. It was important to have the most authentic driving feeling with the car. So Bob and Jay were pretty clear on it has to be a manual. We said, okay, a manual, and Sally Carrera was a base Carrera, if you want to call it like this. And the 992 Carrera is not available with manual transmission, only with PDK. So we said, we cannot do it a PDK, so we need a manual transmission. And then that is available for a Carrera S. But Bob and Jay said, no, I mean Sally Carrera, you see the scene where she drove, she took the ride with Lightning McQueen, she was so powerful, she was able to catch up with a NASCAR race car. So it had to have power. And that's why we said it has to be a GTS powered car, but we still put the Carrera logo on the back, as you will see later on.
That sounds great. Thanks, Boris. Now, to talk about some of those details, we're going to bring in Grant, who I like to call the peanut butter to your jelly.
Oh, thank you very much.
You guys are like the dynamic duo here. So thanks, Boris. Grant, why don't you come over here and maybe you can start, can you give us a little bit of a walk around and start with some of the special details, starting with the paint, which it wasn't completely intentional to match the car today, but I feel almost like a human Sally today. So please explain some of that.
Well, I think the first thing that strikes anything with strikes a tone with a car, it's basically the color. It's very important for us to get not even close with the existing color, but to match that color 100%. And so we spent a lot of time. We had the original Sally from the film, the 3D model, with us in the studio, and we looked at it. We looked under cameras and stuff like that, special color reading cameras, and watched the films on not only in different screens, but also in different media, just to find out, to get that color as close as possible. So it's a one-off color. It's called Sally Blue, and we're really happy with the way that turned out. So that's the first thing.
And what about the actual process too? Because it's not just that you slap a coat of paint on it. What does it take to make a special color like this? Because it seems also, for example, there's a lot extra metallic in it that you normally see. How is that done?
Well, a normal metallic doesn't quite look like this. It's somewhere between sort of like a metallic and a pearlescent, but it's not pearl. So it's just as close as we could get to the images you see it in the video of cars, of the Sally in the cars.
And then I noticed there are many, many pieces to this car where if you were to buy a normal 992, they would be black, but they're body color.
Yeah.
Can you please take us around the car and point out maybe some of those elements?
Well, that was a bit of a challenge. I mean, there are several customers, they come to us and they want a lot of body parts in body color. And when they're originally designed, they're always designed in black matte, just to have this contrast. And of course, there's a lot of CXX options where you can paint a lot of parts body color. But when you look at some of the black parts, they're not intended to be body color. But in this case, we made an exception and we painted it all blue. Because it was more in the spirit of the 996 back then, second generation of the Sally. It had there wasn't as many black body parts in the original car, so I thought we'd get as close as we can with this with this tribute to Sally.
So this includes the front air intakes, the side view mirrors, the side skirts, and we'll walk around to the back and the rear
all around the
diffuser
back,
as
yeah.
well. And also, even the little slats in the engine cover.
Exactly.
So
those little piano keys are also
we will
painted,
take a
painted
look.
blue.
Shall we walk around to the side of the car and you
Let's
can
go.
explain the body side? So there's a very special couple of logos on the side of this car here. One is obviously the emblem that says Sally Carrera with the car's logo, and then the those who have had the privilege of having a Sonderwunsch car built, the Sonderwunsch sticker. So
They get that sticker.
how were you guys able to make this?
Oh, well, this sticker here, that we put on all the cars that are that come out of the Sonderwunsch program. You can't buy those at any Porsche store, so and of course the plaque on the side, we do that for some of our special editions. In this case, being a one-off, we put that on here with Sally's. We sort of imitated her signature as if Sally signed it herself.
And then these wheels are pretty special because they kind of look at first glance like 996 turbo wheels, but they're really not. How did you guys come up with this wheel design?
Yeah, so what we did is it's really easy to take a car like this, like tribute car, and then just do all color and trim. I mean, all color and trim is almost like it's almost too easy. And we always say in our design department, like the wheels make the car. And so we looked at what we could do to, well, first of all, you never design a wheel for a one-off car. It's just unheard of, just because of all the testing and everything involved. But this one we managed it with. We just found ways to do it. So it has its own bespoke wheel. No pun on spokes there, but it's the directional turbo twist reinterpreted in a new way to fit the form language of the 992. The 996 first and second generation are the real soft formy cars in the wheel as well, but you get a little bit more of an edgy, more profiled design and features. Like on the 992, you have to do a wheel to match.
All right, well, that's really exciting because it's like familiar but new at the same time.
Exactly.
Let's take a look at the rear. So one thing about Sally Carrera that I actually had to rediscover by watching the movie again is that Sally has this cute little detail that the Pixar designers came up with. How were you able to do that decal? Did they sketch it and send it to you? And
Well, that was kind of like a must-do. It's always the same thing when you're designing something. Come up with an idea. The first answer is always no, because in this case, it's like a bellows in there, and they overlap each other, and you can actually scratch it off. So it's like, well, you can't put anything back there. We're not supposed to do that, but we managed it. So we found out. We did some testing. Actually, on my own company car, I put some stickers on that spoiler there and drove it for several thousand kilometers to see if anything scratched off, and it's still there.
So
that
real
was
world
like,
testing to make sure that was going to stay.
Exactly. It should justify the first answer, which was no. So yeah, we got that on there. So we collaborated with Pixar on that, and the designer, one of designer that works very close in this project, Shuichi Yamashita. He came up with that together with the Pixar people. That is very representative of what the original Sally had.
And of course, we have Sally's special here on the area where the license plate will eventually go.
Yeah.
And let's come around to the side here too, because I want to open the door, and I want you to show me that there is. We'll talk about the interior in a second, but also on the door sill, you have Sally's special there. That's really incredible. So I think with that, let's take a look at this beautiful interior.
Well, speaking of the door sill guards, that's an option that anyone can order. You can have bespoke. You can have your name, your children's name, whatever, illuminated on any car you want. So we definitely had to do that.
And this is through the Sonderwunsch program.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so I heard that, speaking of Sonderwunsch, there were more than 35 Sonderwunsch options on this car. So what that means is some of the options on this car, any customer can order to configure their own car. However, much of this, there's no way they could be able to replicate this car.
Well, there's another 30, 40 on top of that are not available in the Sonderwunsch. We had to keep this thing special. It's a tribute car to the original Sally. It's definitely a one-off. So what you don't want is to auction off a car that someone could duplicate later. That's impossible.
Makes sense. Well, let's have a look inside.
Yeah.
So we're in the inside of the Sally Special, and one thing, Grant, that's really unique about this car is that it has a full interior because it is a street legal car meant to be driven. But I would imagine the unique challenge for you as a designer would be to imagine what would it look like, because we all know the Sally in the movie didn't have an interior. So you guys had to come up with an idea from scratch. How did that process work?
Yeah, well, it's kind of interesting because you're basically starting something from scratch. Of course, we watched the films back then. We watched them also. We refreshed ourselves at the outset of this project and realized that, oh, there is no interior, so what do you use as a basis? So we basically started from scratch. We thought, well, how could it be? What's appropriate? What's fitting to Sally Carrera? So we came up with this. It's a fairly light colored. It's an airy interior with the chalk leather, being the two-tone bottom is chalk and the upper is in just simple black, but with a lot of blue accents from the exterior that ties the interior and exterior together, because we think that's how Sally might have wanted it. And of course the Pepita is not your standard Pepita out of the standard program, but it's custom made specifically for this car with the Sally blue Pepita.
And this is amazing because we all know, obviously, every Porsche fan knows about Pepita, but the fact that it's this tricolor with the black and the chalk and the blue, that's really amazing. And one thing that I heard that maybe you can elaborate on is you even worked with the suppliers. There were many, Porsche doesn't make everything in-house and then put it into the car. You have suppliers that you have to work with to make these very special requests happen in a short amount of time. Can you tell us a little bit about how you worked with other suppliers to do that?
Yeah, well, that was mostly the color and trim people. We have like a super connection to our suppliers. If you were just doing a normal car, you wanted to make all these changes, you'd have a really hard time getting it done in time, especially in the, starting a car in November of last year and having the auction take place tonight. Some of that stuff is basically unheard of. But when they knew what it was all about, it's a tribute to Sally Carrera from the film, plus the fact that it's a benefit for good causes, they jumped in and they went the extra mile to make things happen in a much shorter amount of time.
That's really amazing. Yeah, it's funny how when you're doing something for a good cause, it really galvanizes people to come together and work. So some of the elements that I really like, you did mention the body color, and we have this body painted dash here. There's a Sally Special emblem on it, and it says one of one. I mean, that's really amazing I don't know how many people can say in this day and age that they have one of one. Other specific design elements on the interior that you really love?
Yeah, well, there's lots of, there's a lot of elements, but was I don't want to say it's a challenge. It was a prerogative for uns there we go. There's a German word sneaking in there. To get it to all work together. So it had to be super special, but at the same time be very tasteful. So the little blue splashes we have in here is done with the stitching, even the Schaltschema, the numbers
and
on
the
knob, that I was going to get to. Yeah. And the stitching, especially if you can see it in the camera from over there, the cross stitching in the chalk and blue, which sort of accents it in a very tasteful manner. Also, of course, small details like the 12 o'clock marking, also in blue, that ties everything together really nicely.
So lots and lots of attention to detail. And the one thing that is my favorite thing that I want to point out that Boris mentioned earlier, and that is on the drive mode button that usually says drive mode, it says Ka-chow mode, which is really amazing. And the fact that you were able to do that as like an official Porsche vehicle is just so cool to me.
Yeah, those details are all over the place. Like you said, this, also the one of one special things that just can't order, only for this car.
So thank you so much, Grant. We really appreciate you talking to us. Thank you for joining us. I'm Laura Burstein with Porsche Club of America, and we really look forward to seeing how much this car sells for tonight.
On this side, and it gives me incredible privilege to sell this car. We're all going to need some Rusties after this. At 3,600,000 on this side, and selling Sally Carrera. Here she goes. Sold to you.